Hey guys, it's Dr. Justin Marcagiani here. Today's video is going to be on iodine for thyroid health and the process known as iodination, how we make thyroid hormone. We're going to dive into it. It's also a live Q&A video, so put your comments and thoughts down below. What's your experience with iodine? Any thyroid health issues? Have you used iodine successfully? What do you think? All right, so let's dive in. So iodide, which is I minus, and that's like the ion form of iodine. It's two iodine molecules make up iodide. So when you take in iodide, like potassium iodide, your body can break those two up into one of each, called iodine. So I kind of use iodide and dine interchangeably, just because iodide can convert downstream to iodine. So your body uses iodine. The RDA is about 150 micrograms. It's kind of controversial. Some people say you should be at much higher doses. You have iodoral and Lugol solution that are in the multiple milligrams, which are 100 times above the RDA. Some people say you should kind of stay more within that RDA range. So my thoughts on it are, number one, iodine, it's an important building block, right? 150 micrograms to like 400 or 500 micrograms is like really where you need to be to make and sustain your thyroid needs. Now, there are other parts or tissues in the body that need thyroid, breast tissue, prostate, etc. We need to be careful because a lot of autoimmune issues are going to be triggered and made worse by iodine. Iodine can flare. It can drop thyroid antibodies acutely, but you can see an increased antibody response and an increased inflammatory response because during the iodination process, you have iodine here, or iodide, right? Comes into the thyroid tissue from the bloodstream used through the sodium symporter, the sodium iodine symporter. It's like the bridge from the bloodstream into the thyroid tissue. And then that iodide gets oxidized into iodine. And then you have thyroglobulin, which is the thyroid protein that's made from tyrosine. So thyroglobulin binds to 4 molecules of iodine. That's T4. That's how we make thyroid hormone. Now, in that process of iodination, hydrogen peroxide actually gets spit out. Hydrogen peroxide can be a little bit inflammatory, and it can stimulate, too much of it can stimulate B cell infiltration into the thyroid. That's your immune cells getting activated, and they can go into the thyroid. So iodination, iodine gets oxidized to iodine. Iodine's bound to thyroglobulin, which is pretty much going to be tyrosine based. That's your T4. Now, selenium's really important in this whole process because selenium actually helps take the hydrogen peroxide. It's a glutathione-based enzyme and it helps break it down into H2O. So instead of H2O2, which is hydrogen peroxide, it cleaves off one oxygen. Now we have H2O, water. It's a benign substance, no problem, right? So having adequate selenium and zinc and magnesium are really important, all shown to help with the autoimmune process. So I always tell patients, get the inflammation under control, get the other micronutrients for the thyroid dialed in, and be very careful when using iodine or dide because of thyroid inflammation and because of the autoimmunity it can cause. Lots of studies in the world, right? Most common cause of goiter is low iodine, but also higher iodine can also increase autoimmune risk as well. So there's this chicken or the egg, right? How do you handle it? So a lot of people that will tell you one side or the other and they'll stick by it. I just try to keep within reasonable RDA and recommendations, test the patients, look at it, make sure the foundations are done first, and then you can always taper up. I think the biggest mistakes is you don't have a solid foundation when using iodine. Number two, you don't have solid nutrition in place, solid diet. You don't have solid blood sugar in place. You haven't really kind of calmed down the inflammation. And then typically super high doses of iodine are going to be used, which are just over the top and can really throw the thyroid and the immune system for a loop. Like I mentioned, up to 90%, according to their data, 90% of thyroid issues are autoimmune. So really the bigger issue in all this is the immune response, right? The immune response is really the bigger player, not just the thyroid, but it's the immune system attacking and beating up that thyroid. And of course, the gut plays a big difference in that. So does a lot of the nutrients that I mentioned. So does stress, the adrenals, the whole 9 yards. So we really have to look at how we got here holistically and kind of go back to the root cause and then move forward and not just come in here with super high doses and potentially flare things. Hope that makes sense. So iodine's pretty controversial. Got to get to the root cause. And when I use iodine, we're tapering it up. But you want to work with a good functional medicine practitioner on this one. It can be a little bit difficult, especially if there's a lot of autoimmunity and there are a lot of thyroid symptoms. Also, you may need thyroid hormone in the interim as well. It just depends upon how good or bad your thyroid function is. Over the long term, an autoimmune attack will deplete your thyroid of thyroid hormone. So it may be reasonable to suggest that your thyroid hormone may be low because your thyroid tissue is no longer functional. So it really depends upon how badly damaged your thyroid, and you want to support adequate thyroid levels in the meantime while you get everything else stabilized. So I'll kind of answer a couple of questions on this topic here. I brought my anti-TPO, or you can say TPO antibodies, down from 1,000 to 117. That's awesome. And they continue to decline. My TSH is optimal, but I haven't been able to bring up my free T4 and free T3 despite all the great changes I've made. Any ideas? Well, I need to know what your free T4 and free T3 are and were. I need to have some perspective. Maybe it's okay. Maybe it isn't that bad. Again, it also depends upon where your thyroid symptoms are at. How are you doing? How much have your thyroid symptoms improved? Has your hair loss improved or eyebrow thinning improved? Has cold hands or cold feet improved? Has any digestive issues or mood issues or cognitive issues improved? Energy. You got to look at also the symptoms. And then it's also nice to throw in there some basal temperature testing as well, because that can help, because we know your thyroid has a big effect on your metabolism, and obviously your metabolism has a big effect on body temperature. So looking at your basal temps is also very helpful. What is the optimal range for iodine? Any brand recommendations? So a good potassium iodine is fine. I have one called Iodine Synergy. I always use low doses and work my way up. I start at the RDA and then work my way up. I'm always going to be giving a couple hundred micrograms in a high-quality multi. And then if you're eating really good high-quality paleo foods, you're going to get probably another couple hundred. So you're going to be getting, just on a pretty good diet with a good supplement, you'll be getting close to 500 anyway. And so if we do any more, we'll just dose it up very, very slow. I don't like to give more than a milligram or so of iodine. And if we're giving it, we're also testing it, and we're monitoring basal temperature. We're monitoring other thyroid hormones, and we're also monitoring how you feel as well. It's really important. Okay, good. Why does the body get autoimmune issues and attack the thyroid? Can you please address the reason why? So the thyroid is just very sensitive tissue. I mean, partly because of molecular mimicry, because of gluten being very similar, the surface proteins, to thyroid tissue. I think that's probably one of the bigger ones. Also, the thyroid's very sensitive towards pesticides, organochlorines, heavy metals. So it's sensitive to toxins, and it's also going to be sensitive towards a lot of the things I mentioned. So, and then, the molecular mimicry part, I think that's part of it. It's just one of those more sensitive tissues because of those big things, molecular mimicry and toxins. My symptoms are gone, feel great. Free T3 is 2.2, free T4 is 0.8. So are you on thyroid hormone? If you're on thyroid hormone, when are you testing it? So I typically have patients test 2 or 3 hours after they take their thyroid hormone, because if not, you're going to always look a little bit lower. So I'm always testing them so I can get a window where they're at max during the day. So I'm testing them 2 to 3 hours after their morning dose. So if you're not on thyroid hormone, fine. But then if you are, then we need to make sure it's timed up correctly. Returning to low carb for me seemed to get really cold, headaches. Would you suggest more cruciferous and or C-Calp or iodine? It depends. I mean, some people on a carnivore or low-carb diet, they sometimes can get a little bit colder, partly because insulin is necessary for healthy thyroid function. So it could be your insulin's dropping too low, and having a little bit more carbs actually helps your thyroid. So most people kind of start on a lower carb diet. They feel good. And if you kind of plateau it at one point and it's consistent, meaning you feel that consistent energy drop or low thyroid symptoms, and then we gently taper up the carbs and we notice improvement, well, that tells me that there's definitely an insulin issue, and upping the carbs is probably the right thing. Okay, great questions. I'm going to just kind of stick to questions pertaining to thyroid and iodine as much as possible. Never took thyroid hormone and don't want to. Well, you may have to. You may have to based on that. Your levels are in the bottom 5% of the reference range. I'd probably be on a natural thyroid desiccated glandular. I mean, you're in the bottom 5%. So I would work on getting that up to at least mid-range and see how we do. Also, I don't know where your TSH is at. You didn't mention that. I think you said, no, you didn't mention it. Any way to bring down my TSH to 2.5, closer to 1, without taking more than 30 milligrams of NP thyroid. Also TRT, also other thyroid levels optimal. So are you currently taking 30 milligrams of iodine? That's a half a grain. If you are and you feel good and all the other thyroid hormones are okay, then you probably are okay. If you are on 30 milligrams and your other levels are a little bit lower, we may want to go up maybe an eighth to another quarter grain above that. So like 16.5 or so. Okay, good. When taking Mastagum to control H. pylori issues, should we take probiotics far from the gum, like hours away? Yeah, probably an hour away. H. pylori is intimately connected to Hashimoto's, by the way. H. pylori and blasto. So if you have a thyroid issue, you definitely want to have your gut looked at, because other infections tend to have molecular mimicry towards the thyroid as well. Just very susceptible tissue. Okay, great. Any safe supplements to try to focus on attention without doing genetic testing? Well, attention, always look at the adrenals, and amino acids and B vitamins are great. When is thyroid surgery necessary? Depends. So typically it's only going to be necessary if there's some kind of a cancer, and the doctor that you're looking at is thinking, hey, yeah, this thing is going to be best. You're going to be best served by operating and removing the thyroid. Thyroid cancer is one of those things where it's, if you know what kind of cancer it is, papillary, medullary, follicular, and they've caught it before it spread, it's a pretty easy thing to just remove your thyroid and then be on a high quality natural thyroid glandular your entire life. I mean, it's not that awful, and you can pretty much reduce that risk. Now, the question is, why did you get the cancer to begin with? There's an autoimmune component in a lot of cancers, by the way. There's a strong connection there. So it's always good to look at the autoimmune component and see if that's part of what's going on. It's really important. Okay, good. Let's see here. So yeah, if it's cancer, maybe, but I would get a couple of opinions and I'd see where you're on it, and I'd work on looking at the antibodies, looking at the root cause as well. And then if you have time, then I would utilize that time to fix it and get to the root cause. TSH 1.9, iodine serum 42.7. Should I supplement with iodine? I mean, I don't ever use iodine serum. If you're going to look at iodine, you do iodine loading. It's better. And then you would look at what percent gets excreted. So essentially, the more you excrete, the less you need. The more you hold on, the more you need. So that's a better test to look at to assess iodine function. Pam writes in, do you recommend taking iodine as a general health supplement since soil is so depleted? Should I eat Brazil nuts for selenium since two have symbiotic connection? Yeah, I mean, Brazil nuts are fine. The problem with relying on Brazil nuts, let's say you need a therapeutic amount of selenium, I wouldn't rely on Brazil nuts, because they're a 10x difference in how much selenium's in Brazil nuts, meaning you could have 100 micrograms in one, or you could have 10 micrograms in one. It's not like a big predictable thing. So if you need 200 to 400 micrograms of selenium a day because you have a thyroid issue, I'd make sure you're getting it supplementally. And outside of that, most people, if their diet's great and they're getting a couple hundred micrograms in a high quality multi, they're probably okay. Again, you can always do some deeper testing to assess that. If I ate a bunch of pieces of kelp in my soup, is that too much? Will that cause problems? I mean, kelp's a great whole food source of iodine, so it's a good way to do it. Just be mindful if you're eating a lot of it, more than a milligram at a time. Just be mindful of that, especially if you have a thyroid issue that has not been fully addressed. You really got to look at whether or not you're stable and addressed or not. Should I take iodine away from taking vitamin C? Do they negate each other? I don't know of anything saying they negate each other. I know vitamin C and iron. Vitamin C can make iron go up, but I don't know of any connection there. Have you heard of Thyrovan's natural thyroid hormone supplement? I have not. I have one called ThyroBalance that I've formulated, and it works great, and I've used it for like over 5 years. Dr. J, can you please do a video on prokinetics? I was on Motegrity for 4 months, and it stopped working. For me, I'm trying natural supplements, but nothing is working. Yeah, I've done a video on it over the summer, so go take a look at that. Go search on YouTube for it. That'd be helpful. What supplements, essential oils, would you recommend to take in a moldy house to prevent brain fog? I would get the mold in the home rectified. I would get the commercial sprayer at BioBalance, biobalancenow.com, and I would get some of their oils. couple $100, spray that sucker, you're good to go. You could also diffuse, I think it's called Pure by Young Living. You could also do some Thieves as well by Young Living. That's really good. Let's see here. I'm trying to figure out where the thyroid questions are. Keep it on topic, y'all. That helps. All right. I think I did it all here. I think we hit everything. But mold's another big one. Mold can definitely impact thyroid function. Mold can increase reverse T3. Thyroid's very susceptible to various toxin exposure. So, yeah, if you have mold in your home, get your home tested, get your own urine tested for mold. You may have to challenge your urine with glutathione for at least a week so you can push it out. But that may be very important to look at that because mold can be a big impact. You know, if you have water leak or water damage, or you feel better when you leave your house for periods of time, that could be a good idea. Will your thyroid supplement benefit me? TSH 1.9 and low free T3 and free T4. Yeah, it would. We'd probably start off with a very low dose. Try not to get the TSH too far below 1. 1's ideal, but I'll go as low as 0.5 to 0.3. See how you feel. Also looking at all the other mitigating factors like all the nutrients for T4 to T3 conversion are important. Like your free T4 is a little bit low, but your free T3 I think is a little bit lower. So I'd definitely work on some of those nutrients to support T4 to T3 conversion, maybe even some iodine. I'd have to look in deeper. It really depends upon how your adrenals are doing and also how your gut and digestion is doing. How often should you retest your thyroid if all looks good? I would say once or twice a year is probably fine to reassess your thyroid. Once or twice a year. Just depends upon how stable you are and how high your antibodies have been. And if you're out cheating a lot, eating a lot of gluten or refined dairy, we may have to look at it a little more frequently just to know that you didn't spike your antibodies. Because if you're spiking your antibodies, that could affect your thyroid levels. You may have a lot of mood issues or energy issues. So you really want to keep an eye on that. All right, hope that helps y'all. Any other questions on iodine and thyroid function, let me know. What are the obvious symptoms of a thyroid issue for a female? Simple testing for that's available. Let me know. So yeah, justinhealth.com/Ulta, ULTA. You can get my Thyroid Advantage abridged panel from there. Low thyroid symptoms: cold hands, cold feet, hair loss, constipation, brain fog, mood issues. Those are common ones, right? Of course, weight gain. These are all common low thyroid symptoms. And my book's coming out. I've been doing I edited it for 6 to 8 hours yesterday in between patients. I was up late last night. So the Thyroid Reset is coming out very soon. I'm working my way through it. It's a pain to do editing, and it's tough because, a lot of the editing is technical. So a conventional editor may not have that background to look at it like a clinician would. So I got to edit it myself, and then we'll have it go to a third round of editing after that. So it'll be out soon. Thyroid Reset book is coming out. All right, any other questions, let me know, y'all. If not, you guys have a phenomenal day. I'll be back tomorrow morning. Look forward to great questions, and you guys have an excellent day. Take care, y'all. Bye now.